What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast, unsupervised because the old man's not here again on the MHRT network. It's great to have you here, gentlemen. Before we get into anything, how are we doing?
It's Victory Tuesday. I guarantee you, Club Dub was lit, as the younglings say over there at Empower. That was about as emphatic and impressive win as the Broncos frankly needed, and specifically as things kind of head into October.
Yeah, and I know people are already going to say, it was just against the Bengals without Joe Burrow. They still dominated them 500 yards to less than 200. That's insane. That is opening up a can of whoop ass. The New Orleans Saints and Buffalo Bills played this week, and it was nowhere close to that. I think Buffalo only outgained New Orleans by 60 yards, and they won the game by one score, I want to say. So to have a dominant victory like that against any caliber opponent is impressive.
Yeah. So make sure you guys head on over to the MHRT Network YouTube channel and hit that subscribe and that like button, that thumbs up. Also head over to Broncos Syndicate, hosted by Gage Madrid. Hit the like and subscribe over there as well. And then tune in to Mainly Broncos on Wednesday nights on the network, hosted by Cameron Parker. We cover all things Broncos on all channels everywhere. Fireworks everywhere. Pew, 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 pew. So we'll get into the Broncos game, obviously, but there are a couple little things that we need to cover that potentially affect the Broncos games coming up in the future. First and foremost being Malik Neighbors tearing his ACL. So he is now out for the rest of the season when we face the Giants in 3 weeks.
Yep.
3 weeks.
Yep, that's big.
It is big. And now
Wan'Dale Robinson as their number one?
Actually possibly Darius Slayton as their wide receiver one, and then Wan'Dale. But now with not Russell Wilson, you kind of wonder about Wan'Dale Robinson, because Wan'Dale was like a favorite for Russ. But nonetheless, that's going to be your two top targets.
Well, but so was the back of the end zone. And by back, I mean the wall.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, 4 rows up in the stands.
Yep. What's up, Jack? We also have, so there were some injuries that happened yesterday and Sunday, and I don't know if it really affects the Broncos much, but Tyreek Hill just underwent surgery. He dislocated his knee and then tore a bunch of ligaments in his knee, so he's out for the season. You also have
career ending too.
Lamar Jackson, who injured his hamstring. He's out 3 weeks. Am I missing anybody else? I think
yes.
I got them all.
Yes. There's one that may or may not affect the Broncos, but Joe Alt.
Joe Alt right there.
I don't know. They said it's a high ankle sprain. It's obviously not season ending, but for a tackle, right? That's the one thing we need to preface this. For a tackle having high ankle sprains, that is a big deal. You aren't necessarily the same tackle with high ankle sprains or anything like that. So having a high ankle sprain can very well affect you throughout the season. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chargers monitor this. But I think the other side of this is like, from the Chargers, it's like they have ridiculous injury history. Like, it is so bad, the injury history that they have.
Go away. This is unsupervised, Glenn. We also had, and it's not really an injury, but we did have the Chargers lose on Sunday, so that drops them down to 3-1. The Chiefs just pummeled the Ravens. It wasn't even close. So they're 2-2. The Broncos are 2-2, and then the Raiders lost to the Bears with a blocked field goal by the Bears. So 25-24. So they go to 1-3. So
we got another injury actually off that Raiders game. Colton Miller, the Raiders left tackle.
Wrist.
Yeah, he had a high ankle sprain as well, and his also had an associated hairline fracture. So he's on IR. I don't know how long he's going to miss for. Yeah, just like Jack's saying, So both of our AFC West rivals have lost their left tackle, and in the Chargers' case, they've lost both of their left tackles. So, yikes!
Yeah.
Yikes. I think that's it. So
Yeah,
that
for the
puts
most
us
part.
that puts us third in the West right now, behind KC.
Yes.
Okay, because they have the conference wins over or one less loss, right, in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why?
Yeah, something like that. But in essence, we're tied with KC right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we had a game yesterday, and we didn't allow them to get a touchdown. It was 28-3, is how the game ended, which was absolutely beautiful.
Sorry, Falcons.
But I do want to talk first about the biggest issue with the Denver Broncos.
Probably get the negative out first.
Luke Wattenberg. I'm sick and tired of this guy.
Yeah, man.
Why have we not seen Alex Forsyth yet?
I've made 2 bench Luke Wattenberg videos this year. That's pretty indicative of how he's been playing all year long.
And if it's not penalties, he's getting blown off the line every time.
Yeah, and it's one where I understand from the point of view, like, we aren't in the room, and so it's one where, we aren't necessarily in the room. So we can shout Forsyth should be starting from the rooftops, but if they don't feel comfortable starting him just yet, then when will they ever? I guess that's the ultimate, $1 million question. But the other side of this is you also have to replace terrible play. And Luke Wattenberg looks terrible. Like, he looks terrible. And actually, if you go back and you look, there's a crazy stat that I was able to pull because, let's be honest, not to turn this into a quarterback conversation, but like
turn it into whatever you want.
But there's a section of this where we talk about like allowed pressures on the quarterback, and then also like when it's when does it actually mean something for like the other person, like who's to blame. Bo Nix is ranked 7th when the pressure's coming from the middle, which is the center position, which means that he is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league when it's coming from Luke Wattenberg. That means Luke Wattenberg is responsible for those sacks of Bo. Like, it is a big conversation that we need to be having right now. And the only problem as far as going forward is just we had a 28-3 game. The game was well in doubt. It turned into a preseason game at that point. You would not have lost anything if you played Alex Forsyth, and they didn't.
Well, I think Gage is frozen. I think one of the things that, and Rich mentioned it last night when we were in the neighborhood, is like you have Wattenberg who's better at pass pro, but you have Forsyth who's better at running. Oh, now he's in. Okay, hold on.
I'm seeing double.
Add that
I'm back.
So you have Wattenberg who's better at pass pro. And Gage and Cam, you both have talked about this too. And Forsyth is better at run blocking. But and Rich said it. I don't know if I agree with it necessarily or not, but he said it's easier to teach pass pro than it is run blocking.
I actually think it's the flip.
Really?
Because if you actually do talk to, and Gage helped me out on this, but if you talk to a lot of offensive linemen, I even think Mark Schlereth has talked about this. If you talk to a lot of them, run blocking is the part they absolutely love because you're talking about attacking every single snap. So the run blocking for them is the easiest part. It's just the pass pro. And the side of this that is so pro for Forsyth is if they are going to that wide zone or that outside zone, Forsyth is that athletic center that can fit that scheme a little bit better. So Wattenberg just simply might be a guy who's just a guy that if they re-sign him just as a depth piece, that's going to be a guy he's a guard / center, right? Like, and then if they need to go grab Forsyth and put him at center, so be it. But it is a very concerning issue moving forward, though.
As far as the what's easier, pass pro or run blocking, I can't speak to that because I'm not as privy to the offensive line position. If Mark Schlereth is saying that it's easier to teach the run blocking, which I would think makes sense because it's pretty straightforward. You just go in there and you run over a motherfucker, basically. So I can understand how that's a little bit easier. When pass pro, there's a lot of intricate details with hands and footwork and hip placement, shoulder placement, making sure that you're not getting yourself flipped against some of the best edge rushers in the game. So that's just kind of the way I would think about it. But again, I don't know for sure. As far as this position's concerned, the Broncos, it seems, have found their identity. They want to be a run-first football team. It takes pressure off of Bo Nix. It helps the overall operation run smooth. You're not in 3rd down and 11 all the time like they were against the Chargers. And in order to do that, you might have to make some sacrifices in pass protection and maybe some of the cerebral parts of the center position. You might have to put more on Bo's plate in terms of setting the protection, all of that stuff. But I think in the long run, it's going to be worth it in order to have a more run-heavy identity as we get into December, where the weather's going to get cold, the wind's going to start blowing, it's going to be harder to pass the ball. The way you win late in the season and we get into the playoffs, the way you win there is by running the football.
Joe wants to know, did Forsythe do all that bad last year when Wattenberg was out and hurt?
In pass pro, he was not good. Not good at all. But again, in run blocking, he showed a lot of promise. He's a mauler up front. He's got that mentality to be a mauling center. But the pass protection, that's the big reason why they went back to Wattenberg. And I get it. I do. But at this point, you want to run the football. You didn't really have the horses to run the football last year in terms of running back personnel. You do now with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey as well. So I think the philosophy should change.
And you guys know by now, but I like to kind of compare a little bit of different sports. And we've seen in baseball how a pitcher, more often than not, will want to be on the mound with his favorite catcher, right? That relationship that you can have between your pitcher and your catcher is going to be a big deal for you once you're on the mound. Having that relationship between you and your center is paramount. It is very paramount because probably the one reason why you have Wattenberg that's in is to what Gage was mentioning. He's setting the protections. He's a little bit more cerebral than Alex Forsythe. But I feel like that is something that's going to come with reps. And so in order for that to happen, I feel like Bo also probably has to speak his mind a little bit. And knowing the fact that he has a little bit of some trust in that organization, as we found out, he also has a lot of familiarity with Alex Forsythe. It's probably going to end up having to come from him, where he's going to end up having to talk with Sean, talk with Davis Webb, Lombardi, etc., where he's going to actually have to say, it might be time for a little bit of a change. Let's go with Forsythe. Let's see what, we can be able to work here, because those reps will come where, okay, the protections, and everything like that, will come once he actually gets there. Because schematically, as we said, he fits that wide athletic zone, that wide athletic outside zone so much better, than Wattenberg. And so, look, all of us, the other part is all of us were also out on Wattenberg, and he did show us something last year in terms of strides. This is a massive step back in a contract year. So the other side of this is, here we're something for Forsythe, but that center position is going to end up being a massive one to follow in the offseason as well.
Well, I just don't know, if you put Forsythe in there, can you really take a step back from where we're at right now? Because Wattenberg is not playing. He may be better at pass pro, but right now, not really.
I will say his run blocking last night wasn't terrible. When he wasn't holding, when he wasn't committing stupid penalties, his run blocking last night was better than I thought it was going to be after watching the tape. But it's still a question we need to ask, because
Mhm.
At this point in time, can we trust Wattenberg to be consistent there, going up against, let's just be honest, not a tissue paper defensive line like the Bengals have? I
Jalen
don't
Carter.
know.
Well, yeah,
I mean-
and specifically when we talk about the center position being an anchor, right? Like an anchor of the offensive line, that might attribute to some of the reason why, specifically in preseason, we were seeing guys like Ben Powers, maybe even Quinn Miners, kind of take a little bit of a step back at times in preseason, because they're doing too much. They're doing so much, possibly with their protections to help the deficiency of Luke Wattenberg in that center position. I think back to when Mike Munchak was here. Munchak talked about how much when Reisner was so good, right? Like when Reisner was so good in that first or second year with Munchak, like Reisner or Munchak, it might have been Munchak, but Munchak talked about how much of having Bowles, and we'll get to Bowles, how much of having Bowles alongside of him helped made Reisner a better offensive lineman. And I think that we might actually see some of that in the sense of that interior where they're just doing too much in a sense. And that's what's making it seem like Powers is a bit off of his game in terms of that preseason, or Miners has been kind of off of his game. Although Ben Powers had a phenomenal game yesterday. Phenomenal game. Yeah. And Garrett Bowles, season-wise, he might actually end up being the leader for Protector of the Year.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, we thank you so much for watching the shows and enjoying the content. If you don't mind my asking, do you know where you're deploying? What branch are you in? And do you know how long of a deployment it's going to be? As a veteran myself, I appreciate everything you've done. Stay safe. Come back. We'll still be here when you get back.
Yep. Cheers, Rodney.
All right. So, despite the deficiencies we've had on the offensive line, and I don't think that includes, as Cam was saying, Bowles. I have no issues with Bowles. Miners has definitely gotten back into the groove that we didn't see in the preseason. I don't even have a problem with McGlinchey. You don't really hear anything about him, and that's a good thing. You don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Powers has been kind of up and down, right? Like
he's actually getting it together. He's actually getting it together now. The last
he's getting it together.
Say where I know. 6 months in the Air Force. I guess that counts.
We like Air Force
better than Coast Guard.
Thanks for your service,
Air Force. I was in the Army, so. But despite the deficiencies we've had on the offensive line, last night we got a running game. J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey. We finally had a running back go over 100 yards for the first time in 3 seasons? 2 seasons?
Mm-hmm.
First time in the Sean Payton era.
38 games.
38 games.
Jesus.
And what I kind of want to talk about in that aspect is we continue to talk about how Sean Payton isn't calling running plays or calling enough running plays. You have Bo Nix throwing the ball 42 times. In my personal opinion, I don't think he should throw it more than 32 to 35 like that. I think that's a safe range. But my question to you is it because Sean Payton isn't calling running plays or because Bo is checking out of them with the RPO because he sees something and changes the play or changes the decision of where the ball's going?
This kind of goes to a subtle conversation that Gage and I kind of had. Like, I want to say it was in off season or something. And then actually yesterday to where it was like, we might be looking at the whole identity thing wrong. To where the use of the running game, the use of the running backs might actually be one where he has loved probably the scheme of the way things have operated with the way Drew Brees has been running things, that it's made him a better offensive schemer personnel wise and everything. And so the way you see things from a passing side of things, even though it's 42 attempts, you're still getting the running back involved. We saw that so much with Alvin Kamara, right? We saw that so much with Alvin Kamara. So I wonder if we're looking at this wrong. There's no doubt they should be using there's no doubt, they should be, running, the ball a little bit more, maybe on certain situations. But I wonder if he's really enjoyed that Drew Brees type of offense, and specifically with spreading the wealth and everything that we saw specifically in this Bengals game. That seemed like a well-oiled machine for what we saw there, Gage.
I would agree. I'd also say that I think that the run game opened up some of those passing lanes in like the short to intermediate areas. That one play where RJ Harvey wide open out of the backfield for a touchdown. I think the ability to run the ball and just keep the defense honest is what opens it up. So everything feeds off of each other. You've got to be cohesive in both areas. And this is the first game where we saw that. The penalties were the most frustrating part of the night. But outside of that, this was the most perfect execution game I'd argue we've ever seen in the Sean Payton era, which we've been waiting for it for a long-ass time, man, and we finally got it.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Cam. There were two plays in particular that we were all talking about in the green room before we came in that Bo Nix is getting a lot of hate for that he shouldn't. One is that Troy Franklin miss where he split the defenders and the ball hit him in the hands and he just didn't catch it. The other one is the RJ Harvey miss. A lot of people are hating on Bo for the overthrow, but RJ Harvey stopped mid-route and then turned around and went to go get the ball. Both of those are not on Bo. One is on Troy, one is on RJ Harvey.
I will say with the Troy one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cam. The Troy one, it was slightly behind him by just a couple of inches. He had to contort his body, and it was a difficult catch. But it went through his damn hands.
Yeah.
You know the rule. If it hits your hands, you need to catch it. So for me, that's 80% on Troy and 20% on Bo. Bo could have been more set, and he could have delivered a slightly more accurate football. Again, we've been talking about that problem. Bo Nix, pretty much the entire night was set. I'm not going to complain about this play too much, but Bo does deserve a slight mark in the grade book for that one, just because it was a tiny bit of an inaccurate throw. However, it's more on Troy by a long margin than it is on Bo.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking at it probably on the wavelength of both plays, like it probably is one where both parties are, to blame a little bit on that Troy Franklin. But from my standpoint, to what you mentioned, if it hits your hands, that's a catch. And even though he does struggle climbing the pocket just a tick too much, which should also show you he has really good pocket presence. To anybody that's annoying and thinks that he doesn't have good pocket presence, it shows you he has good pocket presence to move up. It's just he moves up just a little bit too much. And then when he does that, that's when he throws a little bit too much, right? In terms of that, over the overthinking in on the throw.
Yeah.
But still, the throw was like about as perfect, even though it's like like a couple inches, as Gage is mentioning, it was still right there in the breadbasket that Troy could have caught. And even the RJ Harvey one, I've actually seen more people take a step back on that particular play because they're seeing more and more people talk about how, okay, Harvey, he stopped for like a split second, and everything. The one play, frankly, that has been receiving the most hate from Bo is that one, to Troy Franklin, which was, if they actually convert that play, I don't think people realize how big of a moment of that game was, in a sense, and it's relative, but like that was a 2nd and 24 play. They convert that. You are talking about a situation where it's not 28-3. Like it's possible that's a 35-3 point, game overall, or maybe even a 31-3 game at that point. So like you are having one where it's clearly not a 28-3 game again.
Well, and it's the same thing that we talked about before that I said to you guys. The only one that I blame Bo on is that 4th and 1 right by the end zone. Again, like Gage made the argument, like you don't want to see your quarterback run. I get that. You don't want to get him hurt. But the only thing you can't do is turn the ball over there. Like if you don't convert, yeah, it sucks. But now they're pinned on the 1 yard line with our pass rush, their awful offensive line, and a backup quarterback in. Like you obviously go for it on the 4th and 1. Analytics say you go for it. Common sense says you go for it. You go for it. I like the play call. I like the bootleg. I liked everything about it, except for the interception.
I think you're being a little bit too critical. That's
a little bit. That's the only thing I can be critical on. It was a good game.
No, yeah. But I just think you still have to look at it for what it is. And it was 4th down. If he doesn't get it, they're getting the ball anyway. You know, the only reason why you're probably looking at it that way is it's the 1 versus the 20.
Yeah, like that was it.
You know, but like still they're getting the ball. They weren't going to be moving it either way. So at the end, at the end of the day, like it's nothing to me. Like, and also
Oh,
I had Bo Nix as my fantasy quarterback, and I didn't want him to throw a pick. Other than that,
but the other part of it too is it was 4th down, and he wanted to make a play. So when you see that on 4th down, you as a quarterback are almost like tasked to force the play, right? And that's exactly what he did. And the other side of this too is it was on both. Like it was both in the sense of like it was both of a horrible throw, but it was also one where it was a pretty athletic play by the defender, right?
It was. I was going to say that same thing.
Yeah, like it was a pretty athletic play by a linebacker too, which you rarely see.
He was covering in the flats, and Bo was trying to hit a crossing route in the back of the end zone. I see what he was trying to do, just put it towards the pylon. If it goes out of bounds, no big deal. He didn't expect the linebacker to fall off of that flat and make the play on that. That was a really sick play by a rookie linebacker. So give credit to him because he made a really nice play and probably got some flowers in the coaching room after that. Probably one of the few times that any Bengals player got praise for this game, but that was a really sick play by number 44.
Yeah, and I do want to, just remind everyone or tell everyone I'm not sitting here hating on RJ Harvey for missing the catch.
I know.
I'm not hating on Troy Franklin. I love Troy Franklin. I said I thought he'd be the number 1 wide receiver on the Broncos. I still think that. At some point, I think he'll be number 1. RJ Harvey, rookie, 4th game ever in the NFL. Like, he'll learn. He'll figure it out. But I do want to say that if you look at Bo Nix last year, to Bo Nix this year. The pocket presence, the processing, the command of the huddle, that is what we wanted to see from Bo Nix. There are things he's still going to mess up, but you can see the progression from last year to this year on the things that we wanted him to be good at.
The game yesterday, I think, is a glimpse of the ceiling of this team. It's the ceiling of where Bo Nix can go. And that it is evident that the ceiling of Bo in that game is a top 8 quarterback, which is everything that Bronco fans should be excited about. Because when Bo sets his feet, man, when he sets his feet with his surgical, processing and confidence to, really throw any throw for every blade of grass, it's evident he can make any throw. He is a darn near quarterback, darn near like elite quarterback. Like he is really solid. And it is just that. And obviously the Bengals defense is whatever, but you play. I like how Tim Jenkins thinks about this. You play the team that's in front of you, and it was surgical. Like that is just something that we can never take away as far as that performance. So if we're getting that on, hopefully in, years 5, 6, 7, et cetera, Bronco fans should be excited, man. Like that was such a Drew Brees type of performance that we've ever seen from Bo.
Yeah.
And even more than that, because of the athleticism that Bo brings. I mean, he was able to make some really nice plays with his legs. And the Troy Franklin play that we really should be giving him more grief for, it was a deep over route on a rollout play to the right. Bo puts it right on him. I mean, it's a perfect throw. This one, there were no accuracy issues. This one was right on the money, and Troy does not pull it in. That one was the worst one for me, but it was a great play by Bo, rolling out, extending the play with his legs, that touchdown run that he had. So I think that deserves some love as well, the way that he's able to create with his athleticism. We saw that in this game.
Yeah. And we'll talk some more defense. We'll talk the Eagles game coming up as well. But since Rodney asked it and Rodney's going to be deploying, we'll go ahead and answer it now. Do you guys think Vic Fangio will I'm just going to make it up. We'll come up with some schemes for Bo and target our weakest link in Wattenberg?
The Wattenberg thing, I think he'll definitely scheme up.
You don't have to scheme for Wattenberg. He's going to mess up whether you scheme it or not.
And I will say this is going to be a really fascinating game from the Fangio element, because one of the things historically that we've seen from Fangio or for teams that have beaten him has been efficient, kind of dink and dunk, and also execute offense. And at least up to this point, that's been kind of the Broncos offense, right? Like that's been kind of the Broncos offense of, hitting the running backs or, hitting some passes and moving the ball down the field. So I am very curious to see, how well, this Bronco team will play, because they needed this game to move forward. And I think that this is the other side. I don't want to go too much on a rabbit hole about the play calling thing.
Like we'll get there.
But were there moments of like the 4th and 1, the RJ Harvey Wildcat, one that they clearly converted, but it was a 3rd and 1, and why are we throwing a pass to Mims on a 3rd and 1 or whatever? I think that what all of this has been in the first 4 weeks of the season is preparing for Philadelphia. So the play calling may seem like it's like, what are we doing here? I think it's preparing them for the fact that you're going to encounter moments where it's 3rd and 1 and you have to make a gutsy play. Can they do it? And I think that for this Philadelphia game, I think you might actually see a little bit more of a balanced team with Nix running the ball, the passing, RJ Harvey, the J.K. Dobbins type of stuff. And to what Glenn mentioned in the comments, like I do wonder if we're going to see a little bit more of Bo's legs in this.
We might, man. And, I'm glad you brought up that point, Cam, because it brings me back to a Mark Schlereth video from a couple of years ago. And I think it was a similar conversation here in Denver about Sean Payton's play calling. And Mark Schlereth explained the difference between good play callers and elite play callers. Good play callers will see a play that isn't working, and they'll say, all right, this isn't working. We're going to dump it. This play isn't worth a shit. But the elite play callers will know that they have multiple explosives tied to this one run, for example, off the play action that they can run. If they stay with that run, commit to it, knowing that it's only going to average 2 yards per carry, let's say, but at some point you can get something off of these plays that you can attack a defense that you're facing later on in the season because they've seen these plays on film. They're going to try to attack them, and you can get some of those wrinkles off of it. So just like you said, Cam, we might see some of these wrinkles in the Philadelphia game, kind of the mundane play calling that Sean Payton's been building up these last 4 weeks, more so the past couple or the first 3 more than the last week. But still, those mundane play calls might be building up for something more explosive in this Philadelphia game. As far as Rodney's question, of course, Vic Fangio is going to have something up his sleeve for Bo. And he's watching film. He knows that Luke Wattenberg's the weak link on that O-line, so he's going to have something up his sleeve for that. And probably it's no secret what that's going to be. It's going to be Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is going to wreck Luke Wattenberg's day. I have concerns about this matchup. Spoiler alert, I don't think this day is going to go very well for the Broncos, but I know that Vic Fangio is going to have a game plan, but Sean Payton's also going to have a game plan. Sean Payton is a guy who's very smart. He knows Vic Fangio. He knows how to attack a Fangio defense. So we'll see, man. I think that this is going to be a really interesting chess match, and it's the second time since Sean Payton's been the Broncos head coach that we've seen him go against a Vic Fangio defense. The personnel was different down in Miami, but remember, the Broncos offense actually played well in that 70-20 Miami game. People forget that. The offense was kind of rolling in that game, but the defense was so bad that it overshadowed that entire performance. So I think Sean Payton's going to have a really interesting game plan to attack Vic Fangio, but Fangio's also going to have a game plan as well.
Yeah. So before we dive back into any more topics, I do want to remind people and ask people to please head on over to the MHRT Network YouTube page and the Broncos Syndicate page and hit that subscribe.
We want 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year.
That's a lot. 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Cam has spoken. And if you are willing to, if you are willing to, we also have super chats turned on if you would like to do that. You don't have to. You are not required to. I'm not asking you to. But if you'd like to, please do. So I want to kind of go back to what Victor Lapp was talking about, where Johnny asked about our tight end position, and then Victor Lapp talked about Mims being the Joker and Ingram ain't it. We saw Evan Ingram come back in this game from injury, got some catches, but really didn't do much. Like, what is the plan for Evan Ingram? Because it seems like he's just kind of in that, we'll throw you in there and see what happens, but we don't really have a plan for you right now.
I think myself included was a bit too excited about the return of Evan Ingram, when I think the long-term plan, the long-term success of this about Evan Ingram being used in the game plan is more the thought. And I think the other side of this too is we put up 500 plus of total yards without Evan Ingram. That should actually give you far more optimism for if they do use Evan Ingram, what could that be? Because, like, I'm telling you right now, the plays that we are seeing with Adam Troutman, like on some of those bootleg rollouts that you see with Bo, Evan Ingram can run that. And so I have to think that there are plays 100% where Evan Ingram is in that role and they are running that play with him maybe at some point during the season, maybe even numerous times. So I think that it might be a case where they're saving him a little bit. It is the beginning of the season. He did come back from injury, and so they probably didn't want to push it too much. But I mean, it's probably a little bit of like an eyebrow raiser for sure. But it's one where it's like, they still put up 500 yards of total offense without Evan Ingram. And so it might just be a scheme thing where Courtland Sutton's going to have a day, Franklin's going to have a day, Mims is going to have a day, and then Evan Ingram's going to end up having some days. So it just might end up being sprinkled and spread the wealth, that way.
And that's kind of how it's been in the entire Sean Payton era, right? One guy will go off one week, the other guy will go off the next week. So Evan Ingram's going to get his game. I promise you that. As far as him in this particular game, I would agree that he was a little bit underwhelming, but he also didn't have a whole lot of opportunities. The defense knows that Sean wants to get him the football, so I think they're trying to take him away. And also with Troutman, he's your starting inline tight end, and the Bengals had some issues covering inline tight ends, so I think it was kind of a point of emphasis to get Troutman the ball. There will be matchups where big slot is going to be a point of emphasis to get the ball to that player. So that's where I think Evan Ingram is going to have a really big day. And to your point, Cam, he can run some of those bootleg plays and actually had a couple of nice run blocking reps last night to the point where you can have him in there in line to sell the run and then have him slice out on a bootleg, run into the flat, dump it off to him, and he can have an explosive catch and run like he did against the Arizona Cardinals in the preseason. I'm very confident we're going to see that. Mm-hmm. Do I think that Evan Ingram is going to be this dynamic difference maker all season long? Based off these first 4 games, probably not. But is he going to have some explosive plays as we go further and further into the season, as we start running the football more and sprinkling in more play action off of it? Hell yeah.
Well, and even if Evan Ingram doesn't have the impact that we thought he was going to, he still raises the talent level of that tight end room. Mm-hmm. Just being
1,000%.
Oh, yeah.
1,000%.
So we've talked offense, we've talked quarterback, we've talked injuries. Now let's talk a little bit about the defense. Now, again, I understand that we're going to talk about a dominating defense against a Bengals team that had a backup quarterback. I get it. However, he's still throwing to Jamar Chase. He's still throwing to T. Higgins. They still have Chase Brown in there. Like, they have weapons. But our defense did not allow a touchdown. All they allowed was one field goal.
Yep. And
one of the big questions I have is last year we saw a lot of Zach Allen. Now we have Jonah Ellis, we have Jonathan Cooper, we have Nick Bonito. We're not really seeing a lot out of Zach Allen. Is he just getting beat around the edge so he can't get there first? Are they double teaming? Where did he go?
Actually, according
he's still there.
I was gonna say, if you actually look at one clip, he's getting quadruple teamed. But no, it's just they're just double teaming him. But that's how good this defensive line is. Like John Franklin Myers got a sack on Monday night. So I mean, like it's opening up like so much more for you. This defensive line, it is opening up so much for you. And look, it's been the mark of a really good interior defensive line, like just historically. Not everyone's going to put up like the Aaron Donald numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just like he is the type of player where they know how good he is, and it's going to end up factoring where he'll be consuming those double teams. The problem is that defensive line is so good, you can double team him fine. Yep. We have two starting pass rushers that are as quick as a hiccup and timing the snap count that's going to be able to get to your quarterback. It doesn't matter how good your tackle is. You could send Joe Thomas, a prime Joe Thomas out there, and they will be able to time the snap count and get to whoever the starting quarterback is there. So it really is just about he's facing some double teams, and it's going to be a point where they might even double Nick Bonito as the season progresses, and then at that point you'll see a little bit more of Zach Allen or John Franklin Myers and more
or
players.
Jonathan Cooper or Jonah Ellis or Brandon Jones. Take your pick.
Jonah Ellis especially.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Like, stat watchers may not be impressed with what Zach Allen's doing, but if you look at the film, he is having a big impact out there, eating those double teams, setting things up for other guys out there. That's why Nick Bonito is playing so well. That's why Jonathan Cooper's playing so well. That's why JFM's playing so well.
So he's Derek Wolfe.
Yeah, in a sense he is. He's the guy who's doing the dirty work that is kind of behind the scenes, not getting the love and recognition he deserves. Last year, he was the guy who was getting free. He wasn't seeing as many double teams as he is this year. This year, teams know that this guy's a game wrecker, but like Cam said, they've got several other game wreckers on this defensive line that you can't double team all of them. Somebody's going to get a one-on-one matchup, and if they have to start sliding the line to Bonito, Zach Allen's going to get more one-on-ones, and good luck trying to guard Zach Allen one-on-one.
And I'm telling you, I don't know if they will, but the way that the Broncos have structurally and contractually orchestrated this offseason, now with Nick Bonito being done, they've afforded themselves a window, a very good window, where they can extend John Franklin Myers, and he deserves that contract with how he's playing this year. So if they extend John Franklin Myers, you are talking about, everybody talks about the defense being locked up for the foreseeable future, which they are. But you talk about John Franklin Myers, and that is the exact same thing. They are going to be, that defensive line is going to end up being locked down for the foreseeable future for the next couple, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. And that is a good problem to have, because you need to win games in the trenches, and they need to look hard about extending John Franklin Myers, because he is starting with such a vengeance, if you will, to begin the year. Like, it's obvious he wants to be paid.
Well, and now you have this next offseason where you don't have to pay Russell Wilson anymore. That clears tens of millions of dollars off the salary cap that we could put somewhere else.
Yeah,
it sure does.
Glenn puts in the chat, they are on pace to exceed last year's sack total, and they had above 60 in sack. So the fact that they are on pace to have more than that is absurd.
Yeah. And the fact is, they've got depth. Even if somebody goes down, knock on wood, I don't think the production's going to fall off very much, unless that guy is Zach Allen. Again, knock on wood, that might cause some problems. But with with Nick Bonito, with Jonathan Cooper. You've got Jonah Ellis and Dondre Tillman, who are both playing some really fantastic football this year, especially Jonah Ellis. You can afford an injury at edge rusher. And on the interior defensive line, outside of John Franklin Myers, you've got Yomo Wazarike. He's playing really well. You've got Savion Jones, who got into the game last night.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got depth, man. And depth is a big-time priority on the defensive line.
Was
Pretty
that
sure,
Wazarike that got hurt in the game last night?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
He came back in, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, Savion Jones drew a holding penalty, if I'm not mistaken. One of the billion holding penalties that were.
I'll say, which one?
Right.
But I think, when we talk about the defensive line, though, it's like you have to talk about the other stuff, which I think was the second biggest talking point of this game going in. Like, obviously, was the offense, but it was the rematch of T. Higgins and Riley Moss. And look, I've been a Riley Moss supporter, really since day one, and even day one of this regular and ending of this regular season. He's just been thrown at and coverage of plays that, frankly, the perfect throw. And there is nothing you can do about the perfect throw. It doesn't look good in the stat book in terms of yards allowed, etc. He's just going to be thrown at. Well, he had his revenge game. He had his revenge game against T. Higgins. Did you know what he did against T. Higgins? He had 5 targets. This is basically ever since the first quarter. Because, that first quarter was, where they were targeted. That white shadow over there, a corner, had 5 targets that were thrown his way. He allowed 2 catches to T. Higgins for 25 yards, a 12.5 yards per average on that reception. He also allowed a -1 of yards after catch. That is literally nothing. That is literally nothing. He is fine. He is going to end up being thrown at. It just is what it is. The fact that he was able to clamp a T. Higgins, which I don't care if Joe Burrow was their quarterback. He had T. Higgins to deal with. He clamped him just fine. The white shadow over there, cornerback, is fine.
Stride for stride in his hip pocket all night long. And fans are only going to see corners when they're targeted, when they're watching the TV copy. So you're only going to see their best or worst plays. I feel like that kind of skews the overall perception of a corner and why Riley Moss gets a lot of hate and scrutiny when I don't think it's deserved. He's just been really good this year. You're going to get beat. You're going to get out of position, especially when you're getting 1 billion targets a game because teams don't want to throw at the guy who's on the other side. So, quite frankly, Riley Moss, for being a guy who has to be the cornerback 2 alongside the best corner in the game, he really is about the best cornerback 2 than you could ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know that over the previous 2 games with the Chargers and with the Colts, you also saw PS2 getting targeted a lot and giving up some plays that we normally don't see him,
even the best corner in the game gets beat.
He was getting targeted more this year, and so now we're starting to see PS2 having to adapt and overcome and get used to getting thrown at, because the last couple of years people just don't throw his direction.
And what happened against Jamar Chase?
23 yards. That's what happened. He
became his son again. There's just levels of, when you see a corner or you see a wide receiver on the opposite side who has eluded his game, you're going to shut him down. And when you're the defensive player of the year, you want to prove that you're the defensive player of the year. And he did exactly that. So it is one where this team, if they're to the comment that I believe was Johnny asked about, if there's anything that we're lacking, maybe that's the other side of this that I was a bit surprised with, and this is a good thing, was overall with this defense, it has been the linebacker play. And I know we have been complaining about Mr. 49, but he had, relatively speaking, a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively speaking, he had a good game against the Cincinnati Bengals. I was expecting Chase Brown to run all over them or catch passes and run all over Alex Singleton. That really didn't happen. And, he allowed some catches. I think he was 100% when targeted to. That's a side note. But, he didn't really give up anything. Like, he really didn't give up much anything. Sternad also played quite well. So a bit impressed with the linebacker play. It's really just this upcoming game against the Philadelphia Eagles where it might come back to bite him a little bit.
Well, and I think this kind of sums it up, right? Like, if you look at Alex Singleton, he had a good game, right? But a good game for Alex Singleton is like an average game for Dre Greenlaw. That's the problem.
Or below average.
That's the problem. Like, you have a good game for Singleton. You're like, yeah, he had a good game. But that's like a below average to average game for Dre Greenlaw, right? So that's where the problem is. But the other question I have is, you have PS2 coming off Defensive Player of the Year. You have Riley Moss, who's showing potentially one of the best CB2s in the NFL, right? You still have Jahdae Barron. You still have Chris Abrams-Drain. What do you do with them?
You continue to scheme. I love the comparison, and we talked about in the offseason how, like, we talked about schemed up, like how they handle the wide receiver room. It's the same conversation with the cornerback room. I think you're going to see some things as the season progresses where things are going to end up being schemed, like, and where you'll see a little bit more dime looks, more 4 or 5 cornerback looks. And that's where it's really going to be at that advantage of the Broncos, because we saw how good it was. They haven't played the Chiefs yet. And I think at the end of the day, this is about beating the Kansas City Chiefs, and the way that it was in the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles beat them with 5 corners, like 5 corners and playing in dime package. So
Jalen Carter didn't hurt either.
But I'm true. but I'm just saying, like, the fact that they have this at their disposal, is a beautiful thing. I don't know if it's going to be long term because of teams, wanting to trade for cost control players, et cetera, and possibly Chris Abrams-Drain wanting a much larger opportunity. That's besides the point. But they will be fine. I think that it's going to be a lot like that wide receiver room where things are going to being skied up for guys like Barron and Chris Abrams-Drain possibly, or specifically Jaquan McMillan, who phenomenal start to the year he is having. And then of course, Riley Moss and PS2.
So Rodney asked an interesting question. Do we think that if Joe Burrow was healthy, would we still have pulled off a win?
I do.
I mean, in my personal opinion, which is all this show really is our personal opinion.
The laugh.
I know. See, my wife's laughing at me in the background. Last week I had to yell at my daughter. Now my wife's laughing at me. I'm just gonna mute my
perfect timing,
right?
Awesome.
Ha 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 ha. You just wait. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, even I swear to God, I can't catch a break. See, this is why you don't get married. Right there. that reason right there. Just mocking all the time. Even if you have Joe Burrow in there, the Bengals defense, I think, is worse than last year's Bengals defense.
Or same.
So with Denver's offense getting better and Denver's defense, we'll say staying the same as last year, right around there. I think even if Joe Burrow's in there, Denver's offense is still able to beat Cincinnati's defense more than the Bengals offense is going to beat the Denver defense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same ballpark. Like, I don't think it would have been a blowout. I think it would have been a very close game, but I do believe the Denver Broncos have more manpower on both sides of the ball. Joe Burrow is a wizard, but he's the glue that holds together a cheap paper mache house, and that glue got wet. It wasn't waterproof, and the entire house fell apart. So, yeah, Joe Burrow would have made a difference in this game, but I still think the Broncos would have won because overall they are a way better football team than the Cincinnati Bengals, and it showed.
Well,
yeah, I think a couple of those long throws get converted. Maybe it's like 17-28. I still think we score the same amount of points, but Joe Burrow, I'd say Joe Burrow is easily good for 2 more touchdowns than Jake Browning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, for sure.
And obviously we should preface this with hindsight is always 2020. But knowing what we know in the game that we saw from Monday night, with probably what it seemed like with where they were at mentally, meaning the offense, Yeah, no, the Broncos were going to be winning that game still. Specifically knowing the fact that they put up 500 yards of offense. Bo Nix had more offense than the frickin' Cincinnati Bengals offense himself. So, I mean, like, and also the Bengals defense, you put Joe Burrow in, it's still the same Cincinnati Bengals defense. So, so Bo Nix is still probably lighting up that, defense, and you're probably still seeing a lot of that. And it might actually be a worse defense than last year. If there's one thing that might be the same Bengals, they might be a worse defense than last year. But it might be a close game. It might be one where it's 28-23. But it's just it is for me at least. It's one where it would probably be a lot closer. But there's no way they're winning. And the other side of it is they were at home too. Broncos were at home. There was no way they were losing that game.
Yeah, I think this is one of those years where the Broncos are going to be able to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? Like you go into last year, the year before that, and it's like, well, it's kind of iffy. I don't know if they're good. They should beat them, but I don't know if they will. Whereas this year, it's like, okay, this team they will beat. This team they will beat. And I think the Broncos can do that. The question then is, you look at the Colts and the Chargers, we lost those two games by a combined 4 points. Like, it's not like we were getting blown out, right? And we were not playing well in either one of those games. So we go into this Philadelphia Eagles game. You've got the defending Super Bowl champions. I don't think they're playing as well as they did last year, defensively or offensively. Do we have even a shot at keeping it close?
Yes.
In this game?
Yes.
Yes, they do, actually. Yeah. I mean, that's the short answer. And even statistically, on paper, frankly, it has the chance to be a blowout for Philadelphia on paper. But you look at it statistically for what the Philadelphia Eagles have done this year. Yeah, they're first in wins, but their defense and offense is like 25 on average. Like it is in the top 25 on average. And a crazy statistic has come out in the last 12 to 24 hours, which is shockingly, the Philadelphia Eagles have the most 3-and-outs of any team in the National Football League.
Yeah.
And that is a very insane statistic because knowing with what we know and have seen with the Broncos offense this year and even last year, you thought we would have been at the top of the list, but we aren't. We're like middle of the pack. So the Broncos might actually have a chance to move the ball a little bit more than people think against this Philadelphia Eagles team.
I agree. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. I think that they should be able to run the ball pretty efficiently. I think Bo Nix is going to do a good job of finding the holes in the zone because we all know that Vic Fangio likes to play zone defense. I think that Bo Nix will do a good job with that. As far as the other side of the ball, I do have some confidence in our defensive line. I think we'll get some pass rush. I think the run defense will be okay. The linebacker play, that one scares me a little bit. And then Luke Wattenberg on Jalen Carter. We've talked about that as another matchup on the other side of the ball, but those are a couple of areas that concern me a little bit. I do think the Denver Broncos are going to go in there and put up a hellacious fight. This is not going to be an easy game for the Philadelphia Eagles. The last time the Broncos truly got blown out was down in Miami, the 70-20 game. I don't think Denver's gotten blown out since that game, so I don't expect that to happen here. Okay, no, that's not true. 42-17 in Detroit in 2023. That was probably the last time that they got blown out. But still, this Broncos team will go in there and give you a hellacious fight every single week. The question is, will they be able to overcome themselves? The Broncos haven't really lost to the teams that they've lost to as opposed to they've just beaten themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I feel. If the Broncos show up and play their best football, this could be upset material. Dare I say it? I'm not going to predict that. I'll just tell you that right now. I'm not going to predict that. I have the Broncos losing this game. Yeah. But I think they're going to go in there and put up a really good fight.
Rodney asked if any of the Eagles players are hurt right now. I don't think so.
Baltimore last year. Thank you. That's another blowout. That definitely was a blowout.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is it? Nolan Smith is out for the year. He's out for a handful of games, but he'll miss this one. But
I like that right there. Those two terrify me because we don't cover tight ends well, and we fail at the middle linebacker spot with running backs, and now we're getting the best one in the league.
And it's not to say we can't do it. It's just simply because of the linebacker play. Why it's just so terrifying. But I think the part of this that makes this inspiring from where the Broncos were a year ago is those games they should have played a little bit better in against tougher competition. They didn't. The Baltimore game is a great example. The Bills in the playoff game is a great example. But now
that's another blowout too.
But like relatively speaking, and you look at the team and you look at with where they are now, Indianapolis, for all intents and purposes, are the leader in the clubhouse for that division. It is abundantly clear as the way things stand right now. So like you look at it from there, they played well. They should have won that game too. They should have won that game. The Chargers game, another one where the Chargers, if you're actually keeping it a buck and keeping it very objective, the Chargers played down to that competition that day. And so we should have won that game too. So they are clearly playing well against tougher competition. At the start of this year, they are playing tougher against the best competition. So I do expect that we are going to get a much better game. And to call it for what it is, the Philadelphia Eagles, they did win a Super Bowl last year, but they have been known to put up a stinker. And I would not be surprised if the Philadelphia Eagles did put up a stinker and it's a bit of a dogfight to the very end. I would not be surprised. Actually, I'm calling it. I think the Philadelphia Eagles win this game, but I think it's going to be a more difficult and close game than I think people give them credit for.
Yeah, I do think Denver's going to give them hell, but I do think Eagles are going to win this game. I think I had it like 23-17. Eagles over Broncos. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully I am wrong. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Because then after the Eagles, you got the Jets. You got the Giants. Like, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, with where things sit currently, absolutely.
And then you got the Cowboys after that. Mm-hmm. And they've got problems. I mean, they put up a good fight against Green Bay, but they still have problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do. All right. So that completes our predictions for the Eagles game. Anything else we have not covered?
Actually, we didn't touch maybe a little bit on it, but the J.K. Dobbins thing, the run thing. Well, I felt like we didn't talk enough about J.K. Dobbins in a sense, like because I in a sense like I think Sean Payton is realizing. Look, he's been a running back committee person over the years. I think he's realizing the running back committee approach is now going with two running backs. He'll put Bidet in there, and at times, for third down packages and whatever. But like, I think he's realizing, or I hope he's realized, that the game that they had against the Bengals, that the identity of this team is led by R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, and specifically to the one package that I know Gage and I saw specifically in training camp, which might end up being the identity of this team, and we saw it against the Bengals, was the Harvey and Dobbins package. That happened against the Cincinnati Bengals, and we saw how effective that was, whether it was running the ball or even out of the backfield. Once that's a well-oiled machine, that's going to be a very tough scheme to defend.
So let me ask this then. We talked before the season started that we wanted to see R.J. Harvey as the starting running back. With the emergence of J.K. Dobbins, do you like how Dobbins and Harvey are being used in the offense, or do you want there to be some changes on that aspect of it?
I think last night was a perfect example about how you want to utilize them. I mean, you've got Harvey, who's a great receiver out of the backfield, made some big time catches, had some explosive plays out of the backfield. And then you've got Dobbins, who's more of that downhill between the tackles runner. He can run it to the outside as well. Their games complement each other rather well. So it's a good 1A, 1B approach here. And last night was the perfect utilization of both players, in my opinion.
Specifically early on in Harvey's career. Because, I mean, once Harvey, is a little bit more tuned in the games and the reps and everything, he will be a better runner. And frankly, you look at even in just 4 games already, you can tell the speed of the game is starting to kind of get there with RJ Harvey, where he is darn near close to breaking another run. And the most important part of this, the most important part is with this running game, specifically from Dobbins and Harvey, has been the biggest thing in the last 4 years of the struggle in their running game, and it is vision. It is evident the vision of the running back room between Dobbins and Harvey is night and day, what the Broncos have not seen in the last 4 years.
Okay, so, sorry. What about McLaughlin?
I don't know if he has the way this is going and the identity of the way things are going, I don't think he has a future on this team. And frankly, they need to cut him now.
I don't know about cut him. I think Sean Payton still loves him, but
so keep Bidet or get rid of Bidet and replace him with McLaughlin.
No,
just
that won't happen. Bidet is your Samaj AP, Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the play that specifically when I say that vision, actually it's back-to-back plays, is the 2nd and 10 play that turned into, or 1st and 10 play that turned into 2nd and 1, or 2nd and 10 play that turned into a 3rd and 1. But it starts out right, and then he immediately jumps and sees the opening on the left-hand side and cuts it inside, clearly seeing enough vision. That is a healthy J.K. Dobbins, and that is a prime example of him being a 3-down back, capable of being a 3-down back, and one that like it is evident that Sean Payton is also running with the hot hand, and it's evident why he got 100 yards and has looked so good this year. Like, that is a type of vision you cannot teach.
Yeah. So Rodney brings up a good point. We have not talked about Marvin Mims and the punt returns. I don't care what you say. That interference of catching the ball or whatever, should not have been a penalty. It should have been a turnover. He fumbled that thing 3 times, and then the defender got the ball and ran with it. It should have been a turnover.
Yeah, maybe a little, like a small bit, like a small bit. I'm a bit worried just because it's happened again. But I think from the penalty side, looking back at it and kind of thinking about it and realizing it, as long as the defender or the person who's in front of him is not impeding what he's doing, it's not fair catch interference. And as long and if he's bobbling it more than 3 times, the defender should actually have free reign, because once it hits the body,
it's live.
It's live pretty much. And so I think the other part, we touched on this even in the green room, it was rookie refs, and I think maybe the rookie refs might have made a little bit of a mistake or whatever. But if it was me, I probably would have done the fair catch rule myself.
Well, and this is one of those arguments that we've made before when it comes to referees in the NFL. The NFL needs to have full-time refs where their only job is to be a referee in the NFL. In the offseason, they're in referee training academy or whatever, learning all the proper calls and what they're supposed to do, and they don't right now. Right now, they have part-time referees.
Yeah.
Gage froze again. Oh, there he is. Yay!
Hi.
Okay, now that Gage is back, we want to thank everybody for joining us on. No, I think that covers about everything, right? We talked about special teams, offense, defense, coaching, Eagles. Yeah, I think that covers it. So we do want to thank every single one of you for joining us in the show tonight. Love it when you guys are in the chat, giving us suggestions and comments and opinions. Absolutely love it. Make sure you head on over to the MHRT Network YouTube page. Give us a like and subscribe and a thumbs up on the videos. Make sure you head over to Broncos Syndicate, hosted by Gage Madrid. Give that a like, subscribe, and thumbs up as well. Make sure you tune in to all the shows we have on the network. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Neighborhood on game days. You got the 5280 on Tuesdays. You've got mainly Broncos Wednesday nights, and then you have the Neighborhood on game days. And as well with the Neighborhood, you have Bronco Bill on Friday with Spence.
Boo.
I know, right? Chargers fan. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. All I can do is this. So make sure you check out all the shows we have on the network. Hit that like, subscribe, thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. We love Broncos country. We love the Broncos. We will see you guys later. Peace out.
Fast lane when I pass in the street. Bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never